Hey Heather, Paige, and all the rest of you guys out there. I'm Michael Sherlock from michaelsherlock.com. A lot of stuff has been coming from Mobile World Congress in Barcelona. I already talked about the Sony Ericsson stuff. Now some of the stuff that has been so hyped and so rumored, and let me tell you, the rumors have been quite true, the Samsung stuff. So let's start off with the new Galaxy Tab. We all remember that 7-inch touting Android 2.2 device that I reviewed it for Sprint a while back. It was quality, it was good, but really Android wasn't mature enough for a tablet at that point. Well, now we have the Galaxy Tab 10.1. This will have a 10.1-inch TFT display, not that super AMOLED goodness that I'll talk to you about in a minute, but TFT at 1280 by 800 pixels, a 1 GHz dual-core Tegra 2 processor. Again, this is the tablet optimized version of Android at 3.0 Honeycomb. What's cool is this will be an 8 megapixel camera with LED flash, but not 720p video recording. This will actually be recording in full HD 1080p, and you'll also at 25 frames per second, and you'll also be able to play that back at 30 frames per second on your device. So obviously it's not going to go from 20 to 30, but you'll be able to play content back at 30 frames per second if that's how it was captured. There'll also be a 2 megapixel front-facing camera for video chat, as is becoming the norm, although I still don't like video chat. It's not very practical. Powering this bad boy, 6,860 milliamp hour battery. That's quite exciting. That's going to give you a lot of juice, especially on this 10-inch display. It'll be coming in a 16 gigabyte or a 32 gigabyte model, depending on what you're looking for. 246 by 170 by 10 millimeters at 599 grams, so it's a little bit less weight at about 1.2 pounds compared to 1.5 of the Motorola Zoom and the Apple iPad. It'll be launching in March in Europe, or it'll be launching in Asia and Europe in March, with the United States launch coming later. Although Samsung knows that a lot of their dollars and a lot of their profits are going to be coming from US consumers, so I wouldn't expect a really drawn out wait for the US launch. No pricing information has been set, although I expect it to be pretty close to the iPad and Zoom, so maybe in that $600 to $700 price range. Of course, this will have 3G options eventually, but I assume that with 3G options you won't be required, or rather it'll be subsidized so you won't have to pay such a high premium. So that's just my 2 cents on that. I think this is really cool. The Zoom looks cool. This has a USB port as well, so there's going to be a lot of expandability options, which are kind of cool. I'm looking forward to this. I really want to get my hands on it, but again, we have to be hesitant. We really haven't seen Honeycomb in the wild yet. It looks good with, on their tech demos and with the Zoom, preview, but until we actually get into our hands, I still have to be hesitant because the old flavors of Android on tablets was, I'll be honest, quite atrocious. Now the next thing, the Galaxy S2. The Galaxy S line, which they were available for all 4 major US carriers, was a huge hit. That was my favorite Android device. I reviewed the Epic 4G a while back. That phone was one of the best Android devices, or rather one of the best cell phones I've ever used. The keyboard was really good. And I like the way they differentiated it too. They had an unlocked version, and then depending on which carrier you had different options. So for instance, the Sprint version, which was the Epic 4G, it actually had a WiMAX radio and a full keyboard, whereas the AT&T Captivate didn't have a keyboard. So that was a pretty cool thing that Samsung did. I expect very similar things with that. But let's just talk about the unsubsidized version that they'll be selling to you, because we don't know any carrier specifics. A 4.3-inch display, bigger than the 4-inch one, and so that's an interesting thing. 800 by 480 pixels, again, Super AMOLED Plus display in here. The Epic 4G and the Galaxy S original version used Super AMOLED. Those displays were excellent, and now the Super AMOLED Plus technology, although I have never seen it in person, is supposed to be leaps and bounds above that, above the original Super AMOLED, so I can't wait to check this screen out in person. It'll be powered by a 1 GHz dual-core CPU, so that's really a lot of power, and dual core is really starting to make its way into the smartphone market. An 8 megapixel camera with, just like the Galaxy Tab 2 or the Galaxy Tab 10.1. This will be capturing in 1080p video, and it'll also be a front-facing camera for video chat. Again, you'll be able to capture at 25 frames per second, but playback, because of this new architecture and processing power, you'll be able to play back 1080p content at up to 30 frames per second. This will be powered by the latest version of Android for smartphones, 2.3 Gingerbread, but of course, no carrier likes to ship Gingerbread stock. Everybody likes to put their flavor on it. So this will have TouchWiz 4.0 on top of it. This is the most refined and optimized version of TouchWiz I've ever seen. It'll have social networking improvements, more customization options, and a lot more, so it'll just be a really powerful overlay. Of course, I do expect that there will be an option to turn that off if you're not into it. There also will be a social hub, so you can get your Twitter, Facebook all in one place, a gaming hub, a music hub, and I forget the other one off the top of my head, but there are 4 hubs so that you can get everything together, and it's just a cool overlay that TouchWiz has to make Android more usable. In terms of connectivity, of course, Wi-Fi, all that business, but it'll have an HSPA Plus radio for download speeds of up to 21 megabits per second, so that's pretty exciting. So basically, T-Mobile or AT&T's new 4G networks, or obviously 4G is used quite loosely now, but those 4G networks will be able to take advantage of this HSPA Plus technology. One thing that not a lot of people have been mentioning, but I think is cool, hardware accelerated encryption. So if your device is lost or stolen, you have that peace of mind that they really can't get at it. NFC support, near field communication. I know that's the way of 2011 and beyond. We may not even have credit cards by 2013 because all of that information will be integrated into our smartphones, which is kind of cool but also kind of scary. So I guess we'll see what support and what protection and security gets put into that as we progress. 1650 milliamp hour battery, not nearly as big as that 6000 blah blah milliamp hour battery of the Tab 10.1, but still pretty solid battery performance. What's really cool is how thin it is, 8.49 millimeters. That's extremely small. In terms of the other dimensions, 66.1 millimeters wide by 125.3 millimeters tall. Again, that comes in at about 116 grams, so not heavy, very compact. That's so thin. It's really amazing that they were able to put all that stuff in there, an 8 megapixel camera, NFC, all that stuff into such a small, compact body. I'm only hesitant because 4.3 inches is getting to that upper echelon. That's getting to be pretty big. 4 inches was quite a good spot for the Galaxy S, and I'm just worried that the Galaxy S2 may be a little bit too big and people may not want to have such a big thing. But I know people that have, the Motorola X, or the Droid X rather, that's 4.3 inches. And even though they're the type of people that like to walk around with purses, and you wouldn't think that they're into this big mammoth smartphone, they love it. So obviously we'll have to see. I'm just a little bit hesitant because 4.3 inches may be just a tad too big for the average consumer. No word on carrier, pricing, launch, but it is coming soon, and there's some speculation that we could be seeing the non-carrier specific unlocked versions by the end of this month, which would be quite phenomenal, especially with these specs. I'm really excited for both these products. The Galaxy S2 looks phenomenal, and the Tab 10.1 can really be an iPad competitor. I mean, if Honeycomb, like I said earlier, if it can actually compete in the real world to iOS optimized for tablets, then it really is a viable option. And I look forward to finally getting a Honeycomb tablet in hand to give Android a fair shot at being a tablet operating system. So that's just my 2 cents, my take on Samsung's announcements. I'm really, really excited, if you couldn't tell that by now. But which one is your favorite? If you could only buy one device, would you be buying the Tab 10.1 or would you be buying the Galaxy S2? I think it's really close. I think I may prefer the Galaxy S2 though. I'm more of a smartphone guy than a tablet guy, so that Galaxy S is pretty sweet. And I'm a techie, as you know, so 4.3 inches is not a big deal for me. I'm looking forward to trying it out. So which one would you prefer to have? I'm Michael Sherlock from michaelsherlock.com. Thanks for watching, guys, and have a nice day.